Sports Professor Rick Horrow, Beyond the Scoreboard, the show that goes well beyond the trillion-dollar business of sports marketing, deal-making. This week especially, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. We'll focus on some of the huge philanthropic events and impacts that affect the bottom line as well in sports. A whole host of major issues this week. NFL couldn't be stronger. College football, we may know who the 4 playoff teams are, but it certainly monopolized a lot of conversation as we head into the conference championships. Hockey, basketball heating up. NASCAR over, golf starting again, if it's hard to believe. So if you want all these topics, look at the 15 to watch, the top issues, the top 5 in philanthropy, the top 5 in tech at horrorsports.com. We synthesize and organize, and NBC does it on NBCWashington.com. At Rick Horrow, as we said, Horror Sports, www.horrorsports.com if you want the whole thing. Google Play, Audio Boom, Stitcher. Join us on Apple Podcasts. Subscribe to us, iTunes feeds. We got a feed. We got a whole lot of things to do that are primarily sports and business and marketing and legal and the whole host. We got a Miami Heat guy today, a guy who's marketing Carnival Cruise Lines, the Miami Heat, the American Airlines Arena, and the whole host. Life without LeBron James, that's been there, done that a few years, but what's the Heat doing to grow its brand and grow its image? But before we start with Mike McCullough, let's talk about a couple of NBA issues. First, how about this for a marketing ploy? Golden State Warriors offer $100 monthly passes, no view of the court. The team recently sent an email to fans offering an in-the-building pass. The team plans to sell 200 passes each month starting now, automatically renew each month through April. Does not include a seat, no access to the seating bowl, doesn't even include a view of the court itself. The Warriors noted that fans who purchase the pass will have access to the arena's bars and restaurants and can watch on the televisions in the club's areas. And fans...
We're going to take a short break, but when we return, more Rick Horrow, the Sports Professor. Welcome back to Beyond the Scoreboard with Rick Horrow. We pick up right where we left off.
And can watch on the televisions in the club's areas. And fans who can each buy up to 4 new passes still have a chance to receive one of the Warriors in-venue giveaways if they're one of the first 10,000 people into the arena. Sporting events have been cast, by the way, as the new social clubs, as we know. And as for the 44,000 fans stuck on the Warriors season ticket wait list, this is really an innovative alternative to bask in the aura of one of the most exciting, if not the most exciting team in basketball. One other NBA issue before we get to Mike. The Players Association inked a deal to bring its stars closer to the esports world. The NBA Players Association signed a deal with ReadyUp, an app that helps esports fans track and watch their favorite online gamers. Under the deal announced at the sports business journal Esports Rising, the league stars will now have an opportunity to profit from the online video games they take part in. According to Bloomberg, these esport leagues contain franchises, salary caps, multi-million-dollar TV deals with networks such as ESPN, making it look a lot like the NBA or any other pro sports entity. Earlier this year, the 2 major esports leagues were launched: Activision Blizzard's Inc. Overwatch League and Riot Games' League of Legends Championship Series North America. With esports streaming and corporate sponsorships booming, those who have traditionally owned or invested in football, basketball, baseball, hockey, or soccer moving into the esports realm. And it only makes sense to highlight the professional athletes behind the controllers, certainly new dollars for everybody. Speaking of dollars for everybody, a guy who has been a renaissance man in the field of sports and been with the Miami Heat since LeBron days, and frankly, I was with the Heat or part of the founding group of the Heat years ago, and they've been through a number of championships, but the good times are easy. The hard times, you need to be strategic when you get back to the good times. And the good times, you don't always talk about the times when tickets were hard to sell. Mike McCullough, Senior VP for Marketing, has been with the Heat for a number of years. He shares his perspective now. Mike McCullough.
Inside the boardroom, beyond the scoreboard. Yeah, the NBA season heating up again. It's almost time to think about the 2 months off between the Warriors championship and getting started again. But for all of the teams in the NBA, it never stops. It's always competition with everybody else and the scarce entertainment dollar. Michael McCullough, EVP, CMO of the Miami Heat. It's great to have you with us. Thanks a lot, Michael.
Happy to be here, Rick.
Awesome. It's been a very interesting time. I've lived in Miami for 900 years, and we used to have basically no franchises other than the Dolphins. We understand what it took to get the Miami Heat in town, and I'm not sure that the fans take them for granted, but there have been ups and downs, most recently ups. Interesting marketing a team who, frankly, has had championships and has gone from very significant high, one of the only successes in town, and then going the other way. But broadly defined, the long-term marketing strategy, I guess, really does depend on stability and sustainability, doesn't it? What's kind of the key?
Absolutely, Rick. Look, the Miami Heat is known for one thing, and that's competing for championships. And if you've been in sports as long as I have, you know that only one team wins every year. So, we've always crafted a strategy that's going to help support our basketball operations and what they're trying to accomplish. And we realize that the main thing is the main thing, and that's the trophy. So we never really delineate from that, and that's always kind of how we create our structure, and our strategy is based upon always keeping our eyes on that ultimate prize. Again, not everybody wins, and we never base anything on wins and losses. So you're always going to see us talking about the entertainment and the competitiveness of our team and the track record that we can put out on the floor that will speak for itself. So we always try to remind fans of where we've been and where we're going.
Interesting perspective. Knowing South Florida a bit, it's a little more difficult, I would say. It's your opinion. It's your situation. You live it. To get some sustainability in a community where everybody's been from somewhere else, given it the kind of psychological office, so to speak. We, South Florida, have a lot of Knicks fans, a lot of Celtics fans, a lot of Wizards fans, et cetera, how hard is it when you're in a town that is first, second generation as opposed to sixth and seventh generation in some of their communities?
Well, you make a really good point that there are a lot of transplants down here in South Florida who bring their allegiances with them. But the interesting and cool thing that we've been able to see is, I think because we're so young as a franchise, and because, since Pat Riley has been at the helm since 1995, we've realized, a tremendous amount of success. So there is a whole generation of people here in South Florida, if you want to take from 1995 on, but if you really want to take it from 2003, when Dwayne Wade arrived on the scene, and go forward, there's a generation of people here that only know this level of excellence from the Heat, from the first championship in 06 to the additional championships in 12 and 13, the 4 straight finals runs, playoffs the last couple of years. So there's a generation that's really grown up with the Heat being one of the elite franchises in the NBA. So now when we do play those teams from the Northeast who have a lot of people here, it's not quite what it used to be as far as the percentage of the crowd being for those other teams versus the Heat. We now have a really, really solid fan base. I mean, we've led the NBA in sellout streaks. We're at, I think the number is 378. I'll have to check that. But we were number one in the NBA in consecutive sellouts. So we do have a really, really strong fan base here. And I think we've been able to overcome that snowbird factor, if you will, or that transplant factor.
If you're looking long term, and I know marketing people and CMOs certainly have to, the whole idea of marketing to the future and where you are with capacity. A few years ago, you really didn't have any excess inventory to sell. Not that you do now, but when you win a championship, I assume in many ways it's a lot easier to market. And on the other hand, it's kind of hard to do some long-term planning if you are not in a position to be able to offer some new content or new product or new inventory by virtue of the fact that everybody is happy with what they've got. So talk about that challenge for a minute.
Well, you make a really good point, Rick, and what I like to tell people is, when we went through that stretch of 4 years in straight finals, everybody would tell me how easy my job was, and I would always tell them the job doesn't get easier, the expectations change. And so that goes to your point of when you're on that kind of a run, what are the opportunities to continue to build your fan base as opposed to shutting people out? So we actually learned a lesson back when we acquired Shaquille O'Neal. And that lesson was when Shaq got here and everybody wanted to buy season tickets, well, we sold season tickets to capacity. I mean, we sold as many season.
We're going to take a short break, but when we return, more Rick Horrow, the sports professor. Welcome back to Beyond the Scoreboard with Rick Horrow. We pick up right where we left off.
Well, we sold season tickets to capacity. I mean, we sold as many season tickets as we could. And what we learned was exactly what you just said. We learned that we ended up shutting off the pipeline, if you will, of prospective fans being able to sample the product because they couldn't get into the games because we sold everything as a season ticket. So fast forward to 2010, when we had Dwayne, Chris, and LeBron come on our team, we knew that we were going to cap season tickets at a certain level because we wanted to keep the pipeline open for group tickets, for partial plan holders, and for individual game buyers. Because we learned that lesson the hard way, and it took us a while to build that base back up. So we learned that lesson. We found the number that we were comfortable at that allowed us to continue to build those other segments of the business and still remain healthy, still be able to sell out, and still drive enough revenue.
It's kind of interesting. We talked to Len Komorowski yesterday. We're going to put together some commonalities before the NBA season started, and you could interchange exactly the same words, life after LeBron and what do you do? And my comment is not to compare the Cavs and the Heat as much as best practices. How much do you all collaborate and do you learn from each other? Best practices alive and well in the NBA?
Oh, absolutely, and I'm sure. And Lynn's a great guy. I know him really, really well. We've both been in this game for quite some time. One of the best things about the NBA is that they do bring all 30 teams together. It used to be in one big meeting, and now we've been separating them out into functions. But we do that specifically for the purpose of sharing best practices. And the NBA has the team marketing and business operations department, which is we call Teambo. That is their sole focus, is to bring to light the best practices from other teams and share those with the team. So each team has a representative who oversees 4 or 5 or 6 teams, and they visit us and they let us know what's happening with other teams, what's successful, what problems that I might be facing that maybe another team is facing, and we can share best practices, because on the court, it's all out competition. But off the court, we are not competing. I'm not competing for the same fan that Lynn Komorowski is competing for. He's trying to get people in Cleveland to come to his games, and I'm trying to get people in Miami to come to my games. There is a general, kind of worldwide or digital fan that's out there, but when you break it down, we're trying to get Heat fans to consume and engage with our product, and he's trying to get Cavs fans to consume and engage with his product. So it doesn't make sense for us not to collaborate or not to share best practices, because it doesn't hurt me to tell Lynn, hey, look, this is really successful in my market, and for Lynn to conversely tell me, this worked really well here.
Let's talk about the general business broadly defined for a minute. And it's not a labor prediction issue as much as a partnership issue. Many of owners have said one of the biggest positives over the last few years is not just how Adam Silver deals with players, but how players deal with ownership as well. And there's a feeling more that there's a partnership, and it's not just the pure revenue sharing aspect of it, but that everybody is in it together. Comment on all that.
One of the great things that we do, and it was really put in place when David was still in place, but Adam has really kind of doubled down on it, is each year, each team has what's called a business of basketball presentation that they make to the players. So the business side of the business gets a chance to get in front of the players and explain to the players and the coaches and the entire basketball operations staff, here is what their contribution really means to us. And so we're able to show them that the visits and the appearances that they make on our behalf help us retain these customers at this level or drive this type of a business. So the players have a much better understanding of when we ask them to go out and do this particular event, who's going to be in attendance, what that means to us as an organization, and conversely, what it means to them, because they're sharing in the revenue. So that meeting takes place prior to the start of the season, and all 30 teams are engaged in that process. And I think that's been eye-opening for our players. I present during those meetings, and oftentimes after the meeting, I'll have a player stay afterwards and want to talk to me about this event or that aspect of what I presented. So that is one of the things that I think this league does really well, is try to open the lines of communication between the players and the business side, so that the players have a better understanding of what it is that we're asking them to do.
Doesn't sound like people automatically getting smarter. They just all realize that more information from both sides is better for everybody. And in that context, let's talk for a second about philanthropy. We've had a lot of conversations about doing the right thing because either it's the right thing to do or because corporations kind of demand it now as an important part of their social responsibility and their ROI. You all are known for being incredibly philanthropic, so talk about the philosophy behind it.
Well, ever since Mickey Harrison gained ownership of the team, he's looked at the Miami Heat as a community asset. And because we are a community asset, we are duty-bound to give back to that community that supports us so well. So while we have some real cornerstone projects and things that we will do, like our Heat Academy program, which, is an after-school program in 3 disadvantaged areas that provide, kids with after-school tutoring, or if it's our annual fundraiser, which raises over $1 million a year, and the proceeds go to, battered women and children in distress. We really feel like that our stature as a community asset requires us to be very, very active in the community. So, it's an organization-wide thing. Of course, we have our community affairs department that kind of spearheads everything. But we ask our employees to get involved on their own individual time and through events and activities that we do as well. So it's a stalwart, it's a cornerstone of what we are here at the Heat, and I think it's something that the NBA as a whole, from the league office to the teams, really take very, very seriously and do a really great job with participating with and giving back to their individual communities.
Final question for you. Where is the Heat and the NBA, let's say, 10 years from now?
Oh boy! Well, I think from an audience standpoint, we are going to continue to get younger. I think that's a focus of everybody here at the league. Our digital efforts and our social media efforts are really proving that out. I mean, obviously, if you look at the numbers and see how our league and our game and our players are all really registering well with that digital and social audience. It's great to have, all those followers, but we need to turn those people into fans. And I think, we'll have success doing that, which is going to make our audience base become younger and younger over time, which I think is great. I think if we continue to recruit players and players recognize that the NBA is the highest level of basketball, then you're going to continue to see this influx of international players. And with more international players means more international coverage, which means more eyeballs on us around the world. And I think that's a great thing for this league. And how we can really separate ourselves from the other leagues is because we have these players who can see what the NBA is, and there's a pathway for them to get here. And they bring countries with them. They don't bring, small fan bases. They bring whole countries along with them when they come to the NBA. And so I think the international growth and international players is, something that you're going to continue to see be really successful for us. And I think you're also just going to see us continue to try to innovate and figure out how we can keep entertaining fans in the building through our game broadcast and online. And that entertainment factor of the live experience is just something that you just can't replicate. So, I think that's really the lifeblood of every NBA team, is playing in front of a capacity crowd and having that experience, and then having the fans share that experience with other people online and socially to make other people want to be an NBA game live and in person.
Michael McCullough, NBA international destination in Miami, and the Heat, of course, is in really, really, really good hands. Rick Horrow, see you in a few minutes.
Well, Mike can certainly give us some perspective about what it's like to compete in a major market that's dominated by football, how you deal with the tourists from the Northeast, and on and on and on. Mike sure gives us some really unique and interesting perspective. Let's talk about some other issues in baseball, for example. Yeah, baseball, winter meetings coming up pretty quick, and before you know it, spring trading starts again. They strike a...
We're going to take a short break, but when we return, more Rick Horrow, the sports professor. Welcome back to Beyond the Scoreboard with Rick Horrow, the sports professor. We're going to rewind our featured interview, reset the show a little bit, and pick up from there. Here's Rick Horrow.
Digital and social audience. It's great to have, all those followers, but we need to turn those people into fans. And I think, we'll have success doing that, which is going to make our audience base become younger and younger over time, which I think is great. I think if we continue to recruit players and players recognize that the NBA is the highest level of basketball, then you're going to continue to see this influx of international players. And with more international players means more international coverage, which means more eyeballs on us around the world. And I think that's a great thing for this league. And how we can really separate ourselves from the other leagues is because we have these players who can see what the NBA is, and there's a pathway for them to get here. And they bring countries with them. They don't bring, small fan bases. They bring whole countries along with them when they come to the NBA. And so I think the international growth and international players is, something that you're going to continue to see be really successful for us. And I think you're also just going to see us continue to try to innovate and figure out how we can keep entertaining fans in the building through our game broadcast and online. And that entertainment factor of the live experience is just something that you just can't replicate. So, I think that's really the lifeblood of every NBA team is playing in front of a capacity crowd and having that experience, and then having the fans share that experience with other people online and socially to make other people want to be in an NBA game live and in person.
Michael McCullough, NBA international destination in Miami, and the Heat, of course, is in really, really, really good hands. Rick Horrow, see you in a few minutes.
Well, Mike can certainly give us some perspective about what it's like to compete in a major market that's dominated by football, how you deal with the tourists from the Northeast, and on and on and on. Mike sure gives us some really unique and interesting perspective. Let's talk about some other issues in baseball, for example. Yeah, baseball, winter meetings coming up pretty quick, and before you know it, spring trading starts again. They strike a major deal with Fox, 7-year media rights deal. They're locked into an 8-year, $525 million per year deal that's set to run through 2021. This one goes through 2028. All MLB could sell as other media packages not up. The new deal worth 39% more than the current one. The extension, a much-needed shot in the arm for MLB, but it also gives some perspective as far as revenue is concerned. And they coupled their massive Fox Sports deal with a $300 million streaming deal with DAZN. The 3-year deal will see Fox Sports pay $728 million for its rights annually. Baseball secured the 3-year streaming deal over the top, which will not feature any rights to live games, but include the live cut-ins. The deal marks the first domestic major sports property for DAZN in the U.S. and will likely be accompanied by a weeknight show similar to the NFL popular Red Zone. The new MLB agreement will also feature an expanded streaming, social media, and highlights strategy between the partners. It's not shocking to see Fox continue its MLB relationship. DAZN keeps growing its OTT empire by breaking into a major U.S. sports market. Expect the NHL, NFL, or even NBA deals from the OTT company in the near future. What about international? Few international things from a lot of different contexts. First, on the Olympic side, future Winter Olympics in Calgary, it seems a bit unlikely after voters rejected a bid for the 2026 Games. According to the Calgary Herald, the supporters of the city's 2026 bid noted that another bid for 2030 seems unlikely right now as well. Its supporters indicated that they do see the city hosting another Winter Games in the future, but there's got to be community support. And at this point, Calgary planners are looking past the 2030 cycle. I don't think it's 2030, said Calgary 2026 Chair Scott Hutchison. You can't put the city through its bid every 4 years. My view would be let it go, accept the result, move on, and come back with a bid maybe in 7 years. Funding for the mega event was always up in the air, even after the IOC pledged to pick up a significant chunk of the city's planning costs. Nearly 60% of the voters opposed the 2026 bid. 2030 not expected to be much different. And while Calgary organizers didn't mention it, always in the back of mind for Calgary's Olympic Committee are the 76 Montreal Games, which left the city a Canadian $1.6 billion in debt, an obligation, by the way, that took 30 years to pay off. English Premier League and English Football League uniting to show their support for the LGBT community. Both entities will turn all their on-field side equipment rainbow-colored to raise awareness of Stonewall Rainbow's Laces campaign. The EPL promotes the cause during 2 weekends' worth of matches beginning November 30, giving all 20 clubs the opportunity to celebrate their LGBT community and to make clear football is for everyone. With rainbow-covered laces, Premier League matches will feature a bespoke rainbow laces pitch flag, ball plinth, handshake board, and substitutes board for November 30th, December 5. This push for awareness in the LGBT community echoed all across the globe in pro soccer. In June, U.S. men's and women's and other international teams sported rainbow numbers on their jerseys during competitive and friendly matches as part of LGBT Pride Month. Leaked documents, by the way, regarding a new Super League taking soccer world by storm. John Wall Street tells us that plans for the newly proposed league were revealed by German magazine Der Spiegel and indicated that 7 of Europe's biggest clubs, Real Madrid, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, Juventus, AC Milan, Man U, and Arsenal, were considered leaving their own domestic leagues to form the Super League back in 2016. And under the Super League plans, a league featuring 16 of Europe's heavyweights would effectively replace the Champions League and steal the show from the domestics. In response to this report, by the way, FIFA threatened to pull all players taking part in the Super League from the World Cup. The 11 permanent clubs in this scenario would be protected from relegation, 5 others invited as special guests. Amid FIFA's ongoing leadership turmoil, this is an interesting development to watch indeed. How about a couple of other issues regarding baseball before we get into some of the more diverse issues of the weekend? It has to do with Major League Baseball getting younger. They plan a summer league for high schoolers. Elite players eating into the pay-for-play market that exists today. It would mark MLB's boldest effort yet to reclaim a youth apparatus that's been outsourced to third-party profiteers, some say. The Prospect Development Pipeline League, announced by MLB last week, would invite 80 of the best rising seniors, most of whom would have been drafted in 2020, and offer the best of the group a chance to play at a high school game during All-Star Week, in addition to a high school home run derby. The league could grow in size and scope and perhaps challenge the current system. MLB clearly taking a page from the NBA's playbook, which includes opportunities for high schoolers within its ever-evolving G League farm system. Next year, G League select contracts, which will include robust programming opportunities for development, will be available for elite basketball players who are at least 18 and will pay $125,000 for a 5-month season. Finally, let's talk about WWE before we get into philanthropy, because it's not really wrestling, it's mega events. 34, WrestleMania 34, generated $175 million of economic impact for New Orleans this past April. According to a study conducted by the Enigma Research Corp., the seventh consecutive year that WrestleMania generated more than $100 million in economic impact for its host region. A record crowd of over 78,000 fans from all 50 states and 67 countries attended WWE's pop culture extravaganza this past April, making it the highest grossing entertainment event in the history of the Mercedes-Benz Superdome. WrestleMania's financial windfall, just the latest in a string of top dollar mega events, bringing major revenue to the Crescent City. All-Star Game, $44 million. Super Bowl 2013, $480 million in economic impact, and on and on. And kudos to stadium management leader SMG and their New Orleans-based vice president of stadiums, Doug Thornton, for key contributions to all three events. Let's finally talk about why we're here this week. Sports is powerful, sports is philanthropic, and sports also gives you a platform for awareness that you get maybe not in other contexts. Look at a few examples. The Responsible Forum provides a call to action for refugees' inclusion in sport. The event was held in Lausanne and promotes the use of athletics to support refugees. Attendees and speakers came from a variety of backgrounds and had the chance to hear stories, share experiences, and learn how to more effectively run programs. Among the panelists were refugees, sports federations, NGOs, and governments. The event ended with a call to action that aims to put sports higher up the agenda as a tool to work with refugees while encouraging more coordination between different athletic and refugee organizations. And additionally, the panels thought to have research provided to back up the claims that sports actually helps refugees acclimate to their new countries. It's clear that sports and international politics are inevitably intertwined, and providing more access to athletics for refugees may help countries also grow a stronger fan base and a business platform for their pro sports teams. In the wake of Paul Allen's passing, his foundation reaps the profits of the Seattle Seahawks sale, if any. Proceeds from future Seahawks sales are set to be put toward the Paul G. Allen Foundation. This was a move that Allen himself planned before he passed away in October. Although Jody Allen, the sister of Paul, assumed control of the Allen estate, it assumes the team will now be sold to a wealthy individual or investor group, and based upon the estimates, the sale will likely set records for a North American sports franchise. Forbes suggesting the potential sale of $2.5 billion, even more. He also owns the Trailblazers, or did, and part owner of MLS.
We're going to take a short break, but when we return, more Rick Horrow, the sports professor. Welcome back to Beyond the Scoreboard with Rick Horrow. We pick up right where we left off.
Sounders FC, also likely to be sold this year for roughly $1.3 billion and $60 million, respectively. Although he was an early tech mogul, ladies and gentlemen, Allen left his mark in the sports world, hoping and helping to build revered Northwestern teams in multiple pro sports leagues. He most certainly will be missed for a number of reasons. Finally, how about this for Black Friday? For the fourth year in a row, REI closes all 153 stores, processes no online payments, and paying more than 12,000 employees to hashtag opt outside with friends and family. Since 2015, 15 million people in more than 700 organizations have joined the hashtag opt outside movement. REI's effort to inspire people to do something other than consume. This year, REI also pledging $1 million toward the launch of a new center of academic excellence at the University of Washington called Nature for Health that'll study the link between human health and time spent outdoors. The new Center for Academic Excellence within the university's Earth Lab will broaden and deepen its examination of how time outside impacts our health. We know it. The more time you spend exercising, the better. But it'll put some numbers on it, building on existing bodies of work and exploring new ideas, such as whether the dose of nature can be prescribed alongside traditional medicine to tackle issues such as anxiety and depression. And with the annual move, REI joins other progressive companies such as sports science leader Embody and others in thinking outside the box when it comes to sports and recreational health. Well, that's our show for the week and show for the day. We'd like to thank Mike McCullough for participating, Tanner Simpkins and Dan Martin for putting it together, and thank the NBA for being so philanthropic, as well as baseball. All of the issues focus on why the power of sports carries the day. And we look forward to having you have a wonderful Thanksgiving and join us next time when we go Beyond the Scoreboard.